Good afternoon, Monarch baseball fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Rags here in Season 3, Episode 28. And today we are here joined by ODU baseball alum Culver Lamb. Culver, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, sure, no problem. I appreciate your time for coming on here and sharing your story and talking about how you made it to play at Old Dominion. So let's start at the beginning. I know that you're from Virginia Beach, and growing up, did you just stick with baseball as you got older, or did you play all sports? What was the story there
So
growing
that's
up?
always a fun story, especially coaching in the youth baseball and softball realm now. And the big thing is one sport athlete versus multiple sport athletes. But, my parents never pushed me to be one extreme or the other. It was always rec ball all the way up until I was about 13 or 14 years old. And it was my sixth grade year, Brandon Middle School. And at this time, I was still playing basketball, baseball, would do football here and there. I went to try out for the middle school basketball team, didn't make it. I was like, okay, whatever. Tried out for the middle school baseball team, and I made that one. So, as a sixth grader, in my mind, that was me. I was all in on baseball from that point forward. I kind of just thought, hey, I've got a future in this. I wasn't good enough to make the basketball team. I wasn't as tall as I am now back then. I was good enough to make the baseball team. So, I'm going to stick with baseball. And I think I had gone home, and that's what I told my parents. The next year came around. Hey, you're going to play basketball this year? No, I'm going to focus on baseball. And they never really said one way or the other, okay, that's fine, or no, we need to play all these sports. They just let me have my own decision in that, and that was my own personal choice. Was I made the middle school baseball team as a sixth grader, and that's what I wanted to focus on.
Yes. Yeah, and the thing is, as you grew up there in the high school, I mean, what was there at middle school where at 13, 14, were you starting to play, the travel slash showcase teams as you were heading into high school ball?
So my family, my brother and I are like, I don't, you don't necessarily call it first generation college athletes, but both of our parents were not college athletes. So I guess we kind of restarted. We have aunts and uncles who were, but not our immediate parents. So
Right.
we didn't know anything about the recruiting process or even what travel ball was necessarily because we were just rec ball players. We just played everything, wanted to have fun. And it wasn't until the summer of after my eighth grade year, or I believe it was either Coach DJ who was around the area for a while or Alan Elledge who had seen me play somewhere doing something, and he approached my dad and said, "Hey, your son's pretty good at baseball. You guys want to go up to Maryland this weekend?" And my dad's like, "What are you talking about? Like Maryland? Like he's only going to be a freshman in high school."
Right.
And so we got some information. And my dad kind of asked me, "Hey, this coach asked if you wanted to go guest play for this team up at Maryland University. It's 4 games on the weekend, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. We show up, we play, we go home." I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Whatever. And little did I know, I was, rising freshman, and this team that I was going to play with were a bunch of rising juniors, and had no idea until we showed up. And these kids were a lot bigger than me. And it was a little bit intimidating at first, but it kind of made me play with that chip on my shoulder a little bit. And so we get to play. The first game I'd ever played on a college field or on a field that wasn't a high school field was the University of Maryland.
College Park, yeah.
And so we go up there, and coach, I believe it was Alan Elledge, looks at me and goes, "Lamb, have you ever played center field before?" I said, "No, sir." And he goes, "Well, you're playing there today." I said, "You got it." And so I went out there, ball perfectly hit right over my head. Couldn't figure out to go left or right. So I'm looking like an idiot, going all sorts of which ways, run into the wall because that's how far the ball was hit. It bounces off. And at this point, I'm embarrassed because I'm like, man, I really have no idea what I'm doing right now. I go pick up the ball and I throw a bullet from about 300 feet from the warning track right to the first baseman's chest behind the pitcher's mound. That's all I really remember about that weekend. And we get home, and a few days later, it's when I got my first recruiting letter. Got invited to a college camp at Purdue.
Oh,
And it was only because it was, and I remembered it because it was this play. It was specifically from that play that I got that camp invite because they saw how strong my arm was.
uh,
And so I can circle that all the way back. And when I'm doing lessons and things, and I tell the kids all the time, you never know who is watching you doing what and when. And I always tell that story. I
mhm.
made one throw, having never played showcase or travel baseball before, and I got a camp invite letter to Purdue because of a throw I made from center field. And that was it. And that's it. It was kind of a surreal moment where I also went back to like that time in sixth grade. Wow, I can do this. I've got something going on here.
Right. And let's see, in high school, I mean, I know that I grew up on, the Western Branch side, but, and it definitely competitive there in the Southeastern District, but definitely there in the Beach District, with Kellum, First Colonial,
Mhm.
Cox, I mean, Tallwood, I mean, and Princess Anne. I mean, just right off the bat, you don't even have to go out of district, and at in the beach, you're definitely no days off.
Yep, and it still shapes up that way today. You've got a couple more who you've got those few schools who are back and forth every year, but you do still have the powerhouses, the Kellums, the First Colonials, the Coxes, the even Ocean Lakes now. Very
Right.
competitive. Everyone down there at the beach, but then you've got the Bayside high schools where Pat Stafford has done a tremendous job over there at Bayside the last few years to make that school very competitive in the district. Mark Joe over there at PA, same thing, very competitive over there. Even Kempsville High School, where they were traditionally, they're always very good. And then they had a few years where, they lacked a little bit, but right back to being competitive again. So it's like every corner you turn in the Beach District, there's competitive baseball.
Right, right, and Culver, you had a story there at sixth grade on why you stuck with baseball. Then you had a story about your first recruiting letter. Well, just tell the listeners out there about your story here with playing baseball after high school.
So a lot of people who know me well know the story, but
Right,
from the onlookers that don't know me as well, all they see is Old Dominion. They don't know that little bit of a rough patch that I had once I had graduated high school. I committed to Virginia Military Institute as a sophomore from Tallwood,
okay,
and Coach Eichenberry saw something in me, and I love that coaching staff. And even now, Coach Hadros over there at ODU,
yeah,
so that's really cool to see.
right.
He was also there at VMI when I went, but sophomore committed super early, which is another reason I'm able to tell kids don't do that because you just don't know yet. I got tremendously better after the time that I had committed. Now, that's not to say about committing to a school versus not committing to a school. It's not about going bigger or going smaller. Um, because I really like the coaching staff at VMI. But what I thought would be a good fit for me, just for baseball purposes, instead of looking at all the other things,
Right.
ended up being incorrect. So instead of quitting before I got there, I held true to my commitment, and I did. I went up to the matriculation up at VMI, but I only stayed for 6 days, left on the sixth day because I got there and I said, "Hey, this isn't for me. It's just not." And that's a whole different story for another day. But from there, on the way home and get there, and my dad's really was always hard on me as a kid, but we sat down when we got home, and he's kind of, "Well, what are you going to do now?" And this is where I made it my life motto. Well, I'm going to figure it out. I don't expect you to help me. This was my decision. I'm going to figure it out. And I reached out to some of my old coaching contacts saying, "Hey, this is my situation. I don't know what to do now." One of my contacts got me in with Chipola College down in Florida, and it was
Right.
immediate. Like I got home and I didn't stay home, but for 2 weeks, packed up all of my belongings that I needed in my car and made a 13-hour drive down to Chipola. Never stepping foot on the campus before, not even knowing what Chipola was, and got down there. I was not 5 minutes out of the car when I walked up to the coach. "Hey, I'm Culver. I'm here blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know who you are. Where's your bat?
Oh.
And that was it. Like, I just drove 13 hours. Yeah, we know who you are. Where's your bat? So I went to my car and got my baseball gear out, and I don't even think I had shoes on. I was in my slides, my flip flops, jumped right in and started taking batting practice with the team. Welcome to junior college baseball,
Right.
boys and girls, by the way. Um, and then from there, had an awesome first year. What an eye opener! Because a lot of kids and parents still think, well, if you go JUCO, you're not worth anything. That is the complete opposite. And that's exactly what I thought. I thought if anybody goes JUCO, they're not good enough to play in the NCAA. And it turns out that junior college baseball is some of the best baseball to be played in the country. And it took me having to go live that experience to learn that. I think the team that I played on that one year, 4 or 5 guys drafted in the top 20 rounds when they still had all 40 rounds.
Yeah.
And still some that are always coming out of Chipola that have big league careers or are still playing professional baseball, and that's junior colleges all across the country. But so stayed 1 year there and got a little homesick and was kind of like, well, this is fun, but again, it's a grind. I was home for the summer, and I can't remember if it was either Gray Finwood or Coach Finwood who had reached out to me about or me reaching out to them possibly about, hey, I want to come back home, this and that. And so I eventually ended up sitting in the coach's office with Coach Finwood,
Yeah.
and he'd offered me a scholarship to come back home to play baseball at ODU. And this is where things get even crazier. So obviously I accepted it because that's where I ended up. Super pumped up to get home and very thankful of Coach Finwood for not just that, but for many things. It brought me in as a pitcher. Down at Chipola, I still played first and third and pitched. Brought me in as a pitcher. But this time it wasn't as a starter, it was as a bullpen guy. So I think my sophomore year at ODU, I had about 22 or 23 appearances out of the bullpen. Completely different for me because I was used to the starting role, the certain routine that a starter has. And so whatever it was that had happened, some sort of shoulder trouble went on. So going into my junior year, my first outing on opening weekend, velocity went from upper 80s, low 90s, all the way down to low 80s. And it just kind of out of nowhere. And I had done the physical therapy, this and that, no surgery. It was just like one of those cases where my arm just gave out or something. So 2 crazy things happened here. Coach Finwood took me in his office and he goes, okay, you'll still pitch a little bit, but you're also going to go out to the outfield. We're going to let you swing the bat. I remember seeing you hit in high school. I know you can swing it. You're going to go back to being a hitter and playing in the outfield. And then Coach Marin, after opening weekend, I'm throwing a bullpen on a Monday. And I had dropped it down to go sidearm and go like almost submarine.
Right.
And Coach Marin comes over while I'm doing this in the bullpen. He goes, what on earth are you doing? And I told him, I was like, Coach, if I'm going to throw low 80s, I'm going to throw it from down there and I'm going to make it dance. Like, I'm going to be an effective pitcher. And he goes, all right, let's see it. So he stood back and watched me throw about 10 to 15 pitches. And he goes, we're going to schedule something for you middle of the week to throw to our hitters and see if it's the same. So we did. And lo and behold, I was throwing harder sidearm or down under than I was from over the top. Like, how make that make sense? We have no idea why that is, but it just was. And so my junior year was the first time since high school that I got to be a true two-way again. Had about 17 or 18 appearances in relief on the mound from throwing from a different arm angle that I didn't know how to throw from. And it was the best season on the mound I'd had since high school. And on top of that, I got to hit, be a designated hitter, play the outfield, had some pretty good offensive numbers as well. So just all around awesome season. And then leading into the senior year, Finney goes, hey, we're going to move you back into the infield. You're not going to pitch anymore, and we want your power numbers to go up. So now it was a new adventure once again going into my senior year to not just become an infielder again, but learn how to be a power hitter at a high level of baseball. And that ended up working out. Maybe not the power numbers that we wanted to get, but the power numbers doubled from the year prior. So, you kind of always look back and like, man, if I was doing this for 4 years instead of just 2, what could have been? But at the end of the day, I wouldn't do anything differently about my college career or my experiences. because it allows me to be a more effective coach and kind of deal with the ins and outs and the ups and downs of the game a little bit more and connect with the kids of all ages on different levels with what they have to go through.
Yes, you talk about your senior year. You talk about where Coach Fidwood told you that trying to have your power numbers go up. Well, here your senior year, here on Old Dominion's website, led the team in 9 offensive categories. But I got to stop with the first one, home runs 9. I mean, nowadays at the Bud, you get 9 home runs after 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's got to be that big giant building they built in center field or something. Like they have, man, the last 2.5 seasons so far. It is ridiculous the amount of homers they started hitting.
Right. Yeah. But 9 home runs, 30 ribbies, 20 extra base hits, 34 runs, and slugging percentage with 517. They're your senior year, and then also not only did you get to play, college ball back home, but then also, Old Dominion, UVA, Old Dominion, Virginia Tech. Also, you had the opportunity of playing a game in a Monarch uniform there at Harbor Park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those
Just
are
talk
always
about
the fun games there.
yeah.
You're still playing a home game, but you're playing in a pro grade stadium, thousands of people there. And we were used to big crowds, but that was always a fun one because it was triple, quadruple, sometimes even 5 times the amount of people we were used to. So those are always fun. And leading up to that game and leading up to, the first pitch, I always have this cool little stat about myself. I've caught a first pitch on Father's Day from my dad. I've caught a first pitch on Mother's Day from my mom. And there was some other time somewhere that something similar to this in Harbor Park where my mom was, and she goes, hit a home run for me. Hit a home run. She said the same thing at that Harbor Park game. Last hug before we went to get ready for first pitch, she goes, hit a home run for me. And I was like, all right, well, don't expect too much. And kid you not, like the ball came off the bat, and the first thought was, there it is, Mom.
Yeah, I mean, there against Virginia Tech, and hold your fist up in the air, so that's cool there to not only hit a home run in a place that you probably went to as a kid, but
yeah.
So, but and just talk about here, after Old Dominion, and what you're doing now here with teaching the next generation of baseball, softball kids, learning and loving the game.
Yeah, so Finney was gracious enough after I graduated. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, that he let me come back as a grad assistant. So I'd started my master's and was still coaching a little bit of baseball for the Monarchs, helping out around the facilities in the off season and in the fall. And then Gray calls me, who is still one of my very good friends and was my roommate in college. Gray Finwood calls me one day and says, hey, I've got this pitching coach opportunity for you at this place called DBAT. And I had never heard of a DBAT before, obviously, because it's not as big on the East Coast as it is out in Texas.
Right.
And I was like, well, what is it? And he kind of gives me the rundown. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. And he goes, go over and talk to the owner over at the Virginia Beach place, and see what he says. And so we did it, and it was appealing. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. It could be a good career move. I still, get to coach the games that I love. And so I go back to the office one day and I asked Coach Finwood, I said, hey, you got a couple minutes to meet? And he goes, yeah, what's up? And I tell him, I'm like, I love coaching. I love being here. I love coaching college. But I also have this opportunity, as you know, because Gray's going to be the assistant manager. And so I kind of gave him the rundown, and his reply right back at me was, well, what do you want to do? And I just laughed. And I was like, well, man, that's why I'm here talking to you. I don't know what I want to do. So he had given me some extremely thought out and good guidance on the positives and the negatives of each, and what could be and what wouldn't be, and all sorts of different angles and avenues. I think we might have been in there probably about a half hour or so, just spitballing back and forth. And ultimately, I decided to go the DBAT route. And I haven't looked back since. I'm going on 5 years now of coaching and managing facilities. And the DBAT motto that they teach us, not just in the corporate trainings, but within each facility, is that we're Switzerland, because we don't have our own teams. DBAT doesn't have their own teams per facility.
Right.
And we're truly a place for everybody. And if we want to grow the game, both baseball and softball, that's kind of how you have to look at it. It's not exclusive to one demographic or the other, not exclusive to one age group, not exclusive to one ability or one sport. We're truly a place for everybody. And that's how I've looked at it since I've started going, with the learning moments here and there. But it's been a tremendous blessing to be able to get to do this for now going on 5 years, and just being involved in the community, all the different kids and families that we're able to meet, and not just help through coaching, but might be through advice or just getting a kid the right size bat that he might need, seeing the glows on their faces, and having a kid come in that's struggling with something, and then all of a sudden they start getting better with it, getting the feedback from the families. It's just really cool to be a part of not just the game, but a part of these kids' lives in a bigger picture.
Yes, and to piggyback on that, I mean, it also, I mean, not that it wasn't important when my brother and I were growing up, or when you and your brother were growing up, but it's like with the kids today, and the coaches, that you can be a mentor, and just talk about, here with the game of life. Yeah, go out, maybe support them at a game, but just with coaching and maintaining the relationships.
Yep. I've had many kids come through, but for my lesson specifically, that phenomenal athletes, and these are the kids I remember, and I still see most of them phenomenal athletes. They just can't put it together on the field. And most of the lessons that I would have with these particular kids don't necessarily involve like high end or high level skill specific training. It's basically coming in and trying to help them understand, like, this is a game of failure.
Yeah.
You're not going to be perfect all the time. You're going to have days where you go 0 for 80, and you're going to have days where you can't miss anything, and um, the lessons that the kids learn through not just the sport or the abilities that they have, but what goes on in between their ears.
Yeah.
That's some of the most rewarding work that we can do here.
Right, right. And Culver, back to Old Dominion. I mean, I moved here August of '87, and with my brother playing at Western Branch. Yes, the regionals were at the Bud, and then my brother played at William and Mary, so playing against Old Dominion. But with the success that the program has had here the last few years, looking forward to this renovation here for the Bud.
Yeah, I have not been able to get to as many games as I would like to have in the last couple years because how busy I've been. But we finally got to go to one of the games against Coastal last weekend,
Yeah.
and we saw the signs held up in the facility there on the fence of what's to come, and it's going to be fantastic. And I think, who was it? Oh yeah, I got to talk with the head's groundkeeper, Mike Conrad, over there. And one thing I didn't realize they were doing is they're going to turf the infield, which
Oh,
will be tremendous. He had been talking about that, and I was like, "Oh, really, Mike?" And he goes, "Yeah, man, it's going to make us a lot more efficient and things we have to do in terms of the grounds crew. So not like it's just going to be a top-notch facility, and then the next time they're going to be a one seat in a regional, they
yeah.
can stay right at home, and our fans don't have to travel as far this time."
Right, right, yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, I know with Conference USA, and one of your teammates, Zach Rutherford, he's long time close friend of my nephew's.
Oh,
And so he would tell he would tell my nephew just how, long bus trips to the last road conference weekend, and then off to the conference tournament. I mean, but now with the Sun Belt, I mean, and you bring up Coastal. I mean, that was, they're ranked in the top 25. That was a huge series
Yeah.
here last weekend, and it's a conference weekend. I think it's a great move here with being in the Sun Belt. And you talk about full circle. I mean, they're in the 80s. Old Dominion, it's different now, but Old Dominion was in the Sun Belt back then.
Yep. Yep. And it is crazy to look at how far like everything has come along. You go from one conference now into the Sun Belt, which has even more competitive baseball, but that's what, as a fan and as an alumni, that's what we want to see. It's one thing to do it in a conference that you can compete in, but it's
Right.
one thing to go into a brand new conference and then still hold your own and continue to compete at the top. Not only that, but then getting assistance from the conference come tournament time and this and that. But it's really cool to see, especially after the unfortunate senior season when I was there, and then the COVID year that happened. It's been really cool to see all of the positive things moving forward for the Monarch baseball program. The last 2 seasons over 40 wins, being a number one seed in a regional, showing really well in the conference tournaments. And then it makes you excited, not just for what's happening right now, but what's going to be happening the next few years to come, especially with a brand new stadium on the way to make the fan experience even more pleasing and enjoyable. All of this coming together is just really neat to see, especially as an alumni, because now when people come into the DBAT Newport News facility and they're like, "Hey, didn't you go to Old Dominion?" I'm like, "I sure did. I played baseball there." That's right, I sure did.
Well, hey, and I see your jersey here right behind you, and
Oh yeah, I had to decorate the walls in the office or
yeah,
something.
yeah, that's cool. But and appreciate your time. Just a couple more things. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
let's talk about Monarchs that are coaching and playing at the next level. I mean, right there with the Kansas City Royals, Matt Quintrero, he played college ball against my brother, manager of the Royals. Then you got Yarbs, out of the bullpen, and then Vinny,
Yeah. I was
started
actually just
first base.
watching Vinny and his at bats before the podcast this afternoon. We have it on in the facility here, and
Oh,
it's so neat to see not just the guys that I got to play with personally doing their thing, but the links and the ties from the big leagues and all the way down through professional baseball, because you still got Kyle Battle playing,
right.
Bryce Wyndham in the
Yeah,
Cubs organization. And those are just guys that I played with,
right.
guys and then of course Vinny, but and then PJ. I didn't play with PJ, but he's still doing his thing.
Right.
And just seeing all these guys that have ties back to Old Dominion, and now it's not the coolest thing to just see them doing it. The even cooler thing about it is it doesn't matter what these guys are doing, whether they're playing pro baseball or not. The Monarchs always come back home.
Right.
There will be plenty of times where you could just be walking around the campus or at a baseball game, and you've got not just baseball Monarch alumni, but we were at that Coastal Carolina game on Saturday, and Taylor Heineke walked into Rally Alley down there,
Oh,
like just
cool.
out of nowhere. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, I think that's the coolest thing about the Old Dominion Monarchs is it doesn't matter what they're doing, or what their name is, that they're always going to find time to come back home.
Right. Yes. And the thing is, I mean, also with football that was added there in '08, '09. It's just something about a college campus, that has football, and just, even the success here that Heineke has had, and ended up having Bobby Wilder on the day that Heineke signed with the Falcons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but well, hey, Culver, certainly appreciate your time, and I think the Monarchs here are off to Lexington here
Yeah,
to
I think we're
play.
actually playing Virginia Military Institute this
Right,
evening, actually.
right,
Yep. They're on their way on a road trip right now.
right. Yeah, I think it's 6 or 7 o'clock that they play. But hey, Culver, appreciate your time, sharing your story, and good luck here there as you continue your career there with the DBAT facility there in Newport News, right?
Correct. Yes, sir. Right there, right here in City Center, right in the middle of everything.
Oh, okay. All right. So right around Mellow Mushroom and
Yep,
PF
kind of right around the
Chang's.
corner. Yep, that's right. Yep.
All right. Well, hey, Culver, any last minute words here for that high school player that's listening here playing baseball, softball? Any final words?
Yeah, I would just tell them to, no matter how bad or good they think things are going, they just need to keep pushing forward. Just like I tell all my kids in the lessons, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. So you got to play the game and practice just like it would be your last day. Every single rep, every single day, and that goes for all areas of their lives, not just on the field. Grades, school, relationships, the game itself. If they can do everything they can in their power to be their best every day, then that's all they need to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like a phrase that a friend's son, Kyle Butler that played with Grayson there at Radford. He's got a phrase. It's a grind, you
Yep.
know.
And it
So
is. It is what you make it. So as
right,
long as you can stay as positive as you can about it, each day is going to hold a little bit something different, but it's going to keep you moving forward.
right. Well, hey, Culver, appreciate your time and thanks again
Absolutely.
for coming on today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mark.
And go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs.